Hey everyone, welcome back to the show. The Excursion is going to get some spark plugs today because, well, it needs some love. This thing's got 208,000 miles on it. It has been, without a doubt, the most reliable and loyal vehicle we have around here, and it's just gone and gone and gone without really much work at all outside of oil changes and stuff. So it's about time it gets a little bit of attention because it's starting to run rough and things like that. So on these V10s, because this is a 2000 model Excursion, this is an early build V10. Now there is a technical service bulletin that the Ford Motor Company put out concerning spark plugs on these engines, because and it's not just the V10. I think it's the 4.6 and the 5.4 as well, Tritons, that have this problem. And the problem is essentially that the spark plugs either come out when they're not supposed to, or they stay in when they're not supposed to. And that's not good. So to elaborate on that a little bit, there's only 5 threads that hold the plugs in on these. You can look down there and see it. It's not hard to see. But there's only like 5 threads that hold them on. That's the biggest reason they want to come out when they're not supposed to, because it is not unheard of that they'll just kind of vibrate around and, you know, they'll kind of turn over time. And then eventually, when they're loose enough, your engine will just eject them, take out the coil, and it'll just be a loud pop, and then you'll sound like a steam engine going down the road. And that's not a good deal for anyone. So there's a whole procedure on, you know, being careful and taking them out. And then if they do break or they stay in there when they're not supposed to, if they take a chunk of the head with them when they come out, because these are aluminum heads on an iron block, because Ford thought that was a good idea for some reason. I don't know why. But since aluminum is softer than iron, if you're not careful, you run the risk of pulling a chunk of the head out and essentially stripping the threaded part out for the spark plug, so you'll never get a spark plug back in there, which is what I meant when I said these don't like to come out when they're supposed to come out. I don't know how you can have an engine that either vibrates the plugs out and ejects them, and then at the same time you run the same risk of stripping a piece of the head out with the spark plug or breaking the spark plug off in the head. I don't know how you do any of that, because those seem like 2 very different problems. Like one problem, oh, they come out too easy, and then the other problem, well, they don't come out at all. Like what, they weld themselves to the head, I guess? I don't know. But I've already changed plugs on one of these early build engines before. My pickup it's a 2001, it's got the same engine in it, same transmission. I've changed plugs in mine. And I've put 4,000 miles on it since I did that. Not a problem. And I mean, not a problem. Every plug came out. All I did was I pulled the coil and I got in with compressed air and I blew out the spark plug well, really, really good. And then I just pulled it out. And that's all there is to it. The problem is there's 10 of them. This is the driver's side of the engine. These are a lot easier to do than the passenger side, which is a little more difficult to get to. There's a lot of stuff. You got your throttle and cruise control cables. You got all your PCV crap and your vacuum lines and all that stuff, and that dipstick won't stay in. It needs a new grommet. But the hardest ones to get to are back there. But I mean, it's doable. You've got a lot of options for how much stuff you can take off. I don't know how much I'm going to take off on this. On mine, I took a ton of stuff off. Like I had all those hoses disconnected, and I had the throttle cables disconnected, and I had the PCV, no, not the PCV, but the vapor can, the vent purge valve, whatever that's called there. I had that off and disconnected, and I had a ton of room in here, and I was able to get back there and get to a lot of it. But honestly, you're not going to be able to see back there. You just kind of have to go by feel. If you're careful, you shouldn't have any problems. The best way, in my opinion, you're probably thinking, well, what order should I take them out in if they're touchy like this? In my opinion, the best way to do this is to start on the driver's side of the engine. These are cylinders 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And then, of course, on this side, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's how Ford numbers the engine cylinders. That is not me. That's how Ford does it. I know it's different than everybody else, but this is 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 on this side. So my opinion, start with this side because it's easier. If you're going to have a problem with plugs coming out, you're going to find it out on this side. Most likely, it's not a guarantee, but most likely you're going to find out on this side of the engine if plugs are going to come out easily or not. And this side is a lot easier to screw with because if you strip out a plug or, if you take a chunk of the head out with the spark plug, there is a fix. It's a helicoil. It's been done on, hundreds of thousands of these or however many they made before they switched to a little bit different design and allegedly fixed it. But there's a whole kit you can put in, but it involves putting a helicoil in, which means the head has to come off. If you're really skilled, you could do it with the head still on. On this side, it would be difficult. On that side, it would be, you'd have to take out all the AC evaporator stuff in order to get in there and really see what you're doing and be square when you're tapping new threads for the helicoil and whatever. But if you do, it's not the end of the world. That's the big thing. Yeah, it's going to cost you money. Yeah, you're not going to be able to drive your vehicle, but it's not like you've completely destroyed your engine. It is fixable. There is a known solution. It is a good solution, and it is also a permanent solution. If you have those helicoils put in, you should never have that issue again. And I think there's a video that I believe I ran across about a year ago that explains how the helicoil stuff is done. If I find it, I'll link it down below. But the order I would do it in, start on this side because it's easier. If you get this side done without much problem, chances are this side is going to be pretty much the same, and you shouldn't have many issues. On this, it should be. Okay, so these are the ignition coils. These are the spark plugs that I'm going to use. Now, you use whatever you think is best. I would recommend at least platinum or above. These are ruthenium. I've never used them before. Usually it's just iridium. I put iridium plugs in mine, and they were Autolite. I like Autolite, and maybe one of these days I'll explain why, because it's kind of a cool story. But I'm using these ruthenium spark plugs, and I'm going to gap them because they're gapped at not where they should be. And then for the coil unplug, United Automotive. And they are, if I can get it open here, maybe I can get it open one-handed. Now, I will say, these plugs are a little bit nicer than the ones I got for my pickup. The ones I got for my pickup were standard Automotive T-Series. They were $10. These were $13 a piece. There's no sticker or anything on them, but, I mean, they should be just fine as a plug. Now, all this came from Rock Auto, because I always buy parts from Rock Auto when I can. You can buy the Motorcraft ignition coils on Rock Auto, but they're still like $30 to get them. If you go to O'Reilly or somewhere, they'll charge you anywhere from $60 to $80. And I don't even want to know what Motorcraft, right from the Ford website, wants to charge you for them. But it's like way too much. And these should be just fine. They've got all those cool features and stuff. And Rock Auto has some higher quality and some lower quality options, but these seemed pretty good to me. Biggest reason I picked them, quite honestly, is because they ship from the same location as some other stuff I was ordering. I was ordering like a ton of transmission fluid, all these spark plugs, all this stuff. It does add up pretty quick, especially when you got to have, 10 of them. But those are the coils I'm going to be using. Now, for your spark plugs, they have to be gapped, the recommended gap, and it's sitting on the engine sticker right out here. It says right there, spark plug gap anywhere from 52 to 56 thousandths. I usually split the difference and gap them at 54. It doesn't have to be exact. So what I gap each plug before I pull out a plug, and I do everything one at a time. Before I pull out a spark plug and an ignition coil, I will go ahead and gap a plug, and I'll have an ignition coil ready. And then what I like to do, you guys don't have to do this, but I like to number every coil and plug that comes out of that engine. So I pull a plug and a coil out, put the new one in, put the old plug back in a box, number it, put the old coil back in a box, number it, and go on and do all 10 of them. It does take a while. It's probably a lot faster. Just go ahead and pull all the coils, blast out all the spark plug wells with compressed air, pull all the plugs, put all the plugs back in, have everything gapped beforehand. That's probably a lot faster, but I like to do it this way. That way I can inspect stuff more easily as I'm pulling it out, and I just like to do stuff that way. So another problem that you may have, and I went ahead and ordered all the extra parts that I would need, you may have to, not those, you may have to replace your ignition coil plug-ins. I did all 10 on mine. That's the number. This is also the camshaft and crankshaft position sensor plug-in, so it's used for more than one thing. My strong advice, if you're ordering connectors or whatever from wherever, I got these from Rock Auto, order a little more than you need. So there's 10 cylinders on this engine. I ordered 12 connectors. And the reason why is because sometimes, like back there, the wires will start coming out and the connector's no good right out of the box. I'm not the only one that has issues with parts being defective right out of the gate. I bought a box of AC Delco spark plug wires, and I put new spark plug wires and new spark plugs in my sister's car, and it wasn't running right, so took it to the mechanic a little later for some other stuff, and I said, well, go ahead and fix that misfire too, and I asked him later what it was, and he said, well, the wires were bad. I was like, they're brand new wires, and he said, yeah, but they're just bad right out of the box, and everyone's having that problem, so you have to know that and order a little extra if you can. Usually on bigger things like coils or plugs, spark plugs, you don't have to worry about it, but like on these little connectors, you do. Now, another thing, because it's hard to get in there and solder wires together, I ordered, and Rock Auto has them, but you have to go to the part number search and put in the part number, the 90905, and get these butt connectors. And they have some, this is for the 16 to 14 gauge. They've got one for 18 to 22, and they've got one for 10 to 12 gauge as well. And they're all just these little nice metal splices. The lines are where you need to crimp them, and these nice pieces of shrink tubing. So you strip your wires, you put them on, you crimp everything, you slide the shrink tubing over, and it makes a much cleaner and a stronger connection than most of the cheap stuff you can buy at like the hardware store. I hate that stuff. It's junk. It's not a good connection. It's not strong. It's not, neat. It's bulky and clunky, and I don't like it. So those Dorman wire connectors, they're $5 a box, but I'm telling you, once you start using them, you'll never go back to the regular ones if you got to do wire connecting that way. Ideally, you'd splice everything, but we don't live in an ideal world. So I'm going to go ahead and get a plug gapped, get everything ready, and then I'll set you guys up. All right, we're all ready to go. Got all my tools and stuff out that I'm going to need. The first step, after I go and grab the spark plug and the ignition coil that I didn't bring out. All right, we got our spark plug all gapped. It's about 53.5 thousandths. So we'll just set that down right there. The coils, they send you this little thing of dielectric grease, which is pretty cool. I will probably put that on there because that would be smart. But we'll just go ahead and set all that down for right now. First thing you need to do is, of course, unplug the ignition coil. Make sure that the plug-in is okay. This one was okay. And if you break off the little tab that's supposed to retain it on the coil, that's why you bought all the extra connectors. So come in here with a 7mm or a 9/32 socket, whichever you prefer, and loosen the retaining bolt for the coil. Don't lose it. Get it pulled out just like that. Set it aside. Then your coil should twist and pull right out. That actually looks pretty good in there. Happy with that. I think this might be one of the ones that my dad replaced several years ago. A couple 3 coils and plugs got replaced on this a while back, and they haven't given us any trouble since then. So after you get all that done, come in here to the well, blow it out. And yeah, because it gets gross in there. these ignition coil boots don't seat all the way in there and seal everything, so moisture can get in there. That's why I never come in here with pressurized water and wash the engine, because of that. They'll get in there and get moisture and get rusty. So then take your 5/8 spark plug socket and ever so delicately get it seated down on there. Make sure you're on loosen, and then moment of truth. They might be a little stiff. Pretty sure this is one of the factory plugs, so it's bound to be a little bit dirty. And there she comes. Whew. Smells like fuel, but come around here. There's the plug. She was a little worn out, I'd say. Oh. Still got the dielectric grease on there, but Motorcraft Platinum, that's what they recommend to put back on this. Gosh, if the camera will stay focused, but yeah, that's pretty well shot. So what we will do is we'll put some dielectric grease on the new plug, slap it in the socket. It's actually a pretty slick setup they got here with these ignition coils, because you don't need a ton of this dielectric grease. So we'll just, kicking the tripod. You don't need a ton of the stuff, but that does help the coils come out pretty easy. On my pickup, they did not want to come out. Get my socket and everything together. Okay. And now we will delicately put it back in. You always want to make sure you can start it by hand. If you can't start it by hand and it starts getting stiff, then something's not right. It's cross-threaded. So a good way to check is to make sure you can pull that out once it starts getting a little tight. Now, the torque, and this is very important. Usually I'm like, you could just firm it up and it'll be okay. But torque is actually pretty important on these because they like to come out. It's 132 inch-pounds. That's it. That's all she needs. Make sure I got this set right. Yep, it's set in 132 inch-pounds. That's all it needs. It does not need any more than that. Then you just put the boot back on. Get your bolt in like so. Get it started. There's a torque spec for those bolts too, but I couldn't tell you what it is. Mostly on account of I don't really care. The plugs are the big thing you want to be careful with. Now, if you have trouble getting that boot seated on that plug, don't worry. As you snug this down, it should go ahead and seat. Just firm this up. You don't need to go crazy with it. That's good. Yeah, all these are just kind of funky in here and loose, but they'll go ahead and seat down. Take your plug it back in, give it a good yank to make sure it's going to be okay, and there you go. That's how you change spark plugs. So now you just got to repeat the process 9 more times, and you'll be done. I'm not going to show the rest just because that's pretty monotonous. I don't think you guys need to see it. That was the easiest one for me to show you anyway. And I know you probably didn't get the best angle. No, you did all right. But it's in there. You can kind of see the gray from the boot right there. Everything's in. Looks just like it should. That's what you want. So now we'll just take this and the old coil. What did I do with the old coil? Oh, I set it up here on the dash. So you'll notice, let's go inside and look at this plug and stuff a little bit better. I swear, either you guys get in the sun and you can't see, or I get in the sun and I can't see. But that spark plug is shot. How much of a gap is on this thing? Let's go ahead and check that real quick. This spark plug has a 80 thousandths gap in it. And it's pretty well shot. It's paid its dues. It's done what it needed to. It has served us all very well. So thank you to that. Or thank you for that Motorcraft spark plug. So because these coils come in really cool boxes, I don't have to label the spark plug box. I can just label this box. This will be number 1. I need a more solid surface to write on than just that. We're going to be in trouble. There we go, number 1. And then I'll probably write on the outside as well. But for right now, that'll do. Yeah, there was an 80 thousandths gap on that plug I just pulled out of there. So it's actually a miracle that the Excursion was running at all. I guess that's a testament to how nice the Motorcraft parts are. But, yeah, that's all there is to it. Just got to repeat the process. Come over here and get all this stuff out of the way somehow. I still don't know how I'm going to do it yet. I'll bring you guys back when I decide how I'm going to do it. And I start on this side, but I'll get the other side done first. And would you look at that? Everything's boxed up nice and neat. One side is done. So, oh yeah, I did remember. I know I wrote number 1 on that box. That's actually at a cylinder number 6. So, yeah, everything's in. Looks a little bit different. Looks a lot better. I will tell you that every plug I pulled out, the electrode that sits on the end of the plug was almost completely gone. It was down to the damn insulator. So it's no wonder this thing was running a little rough and it was, lacking power. Now, something I did do, because I'm dumb, I broke that off. It's right here. It's that hose that sits on there and then, hooks in. So I don't really have time to pull the valve cover off and investigate that and put the right part in. So what I'm going to do is clean the freaking throttle body. Look at how dirty that is. I'm going to clean the throttle body there a little bit. And then I'm going to put the intake boot back on. I'm going to hook that hose back up. And I'm just going to RTV the crap out of it and hope that it holds. It ought to. It'll cure for a while. All right. Got everything cleared. It's not great, but it's better than it was. It's still going to suck to get in there to that back one, especially all the way back there. But, it's better than it was before. So because this is an Excursion and it's got all the extra heating and cooling stuff on it because, back seats and stuff, it's got extra hoses and lines connected where on my pickup there wouldn't be any. So there's a line that goes in right there. It's got coolant running through it. I guess the way they hooked all this up, because this is for your crankcase ventilation, this big line. So I guess they just put a small line through that, and that's all a special piece. And then the coolant comes over and rinky-dinks around, and I don't know. But it does come apart. This line here goes down to your PCV valve, which is right there. Now, you can pull the valve out, but these two lines right here have coolant running through them. This is a real Mickey Mouse system that they put on here. I never really had it apart before until now, but I tell you, this is something special all by itself. But regardless, all that does come off. Now you notice I have the cruise control. This is the cruise control cable. They do come off. The way they go into the housing is like that. And there are these two tabs right there. You have to squeeze in and then shove the cable back through the metal bracket here. And you can get them out that way. The speedometer cable is a little harder to do because, and I can't show it because I'm stupid. I shouldn't have put all that together and siliconed that damn line, which I'll show you in a second, because I needed this off so I could get the shield off so I could get all that stuff out of there easier. But, you know, if you're careful, you can kind of pry it up like that, and it shouldn't break it. But if it does, you know, it does. But you get your speedometer cable loose. That's pretty simple. It wraps around like this, and then this puck slides in. There's a slot for the wire to go in and the puck, and then it rotates back, and that's what holds it in place. So you have to disconnect that. You'll kind of see what I mean when you get in there. And then the cruise control cable, it just snaps onto a stud like that, so you just have to pick up on it like so. Don't pry out with it or you'll break it. I did a video about replacing the cruise control cable on my pickup because I did that. I thought it was on a ball stud, and I tried to pull it off like that, and it was not having it. So I do have a video about replacing the cruise control cable if you guys are interested, and you can still get them. And there should be a part number on that video if you guys break this one. But yeah, with all that out of the way, and I just went ahead and unplugged that. I don't remember what the name of it is. I know what it does. I don't remember what the name of it is. But that's all unplugged. There's some other stuff that's been kind of scooted out of the way. So yeah, plenty of room in here. Well, no, plenty of room. I mean, it's better than it was. On mine, it was a little more difficult because I didn't disconnect any of this, so I had to maneuver through all the lines and stuff that would be running across here, which is why I did it this way. So it's enough to get in there and do what needs to be done. Now, as to the thing that I fancied up, yeah, it's temporary. If I can, I'm going to pull the valve cover off and try and fix all that properly, but I can't do it right now. That's got to be like that. So I just got a screwdriver kind of holding that in place. The sun's going to be shining on it here in a few minutes. That should let it cure really good, and then we'll be all set. So I got to do a few more things before I can get back to this, but I had a little bit of time, so I figured I might as well clear it all out of the way. One other thing I will mention, if you guys have to replace connectors on these spark plugs or these ignition coils, let me see if I can get one pulled off here. All right, so if you look at them, you notice there's two different colored wires. I mean, this one's taped up still, but there's two different colored wires. When you are splicing on your new plugs or your new connectors, be very careful to make sure that when you cut this one off, you leave enough wire that you can tell what wire went to what terminal. Orientation is very important. So when you put your new plug on these ignition coil plugs, little retaining tab is on the bottom. So on your new plug, make sure your retaining tab is on the bottom, and then line up your wires accordingly. Be very, very careful that you do that properly, because if you don't, you're going to have a misfiring ignition coil. And also make sure, if you use those Dorman wire splices that I mentioned, make sure you crimp them down really good. Give those wires a little bit of a tug to make sure they're not just going to slide out or fall off. And most important thing, make sure you put your shrink tubing on before you splice two wires together, because then you won't get your shrink tubing on and you got to try and tape it or something like that. And it's just kind of a pain, and nobody wants to do that. So just keep all that in mind. And that's if you have to replace plug-ins. I had to do all of them on my pickup because I left the hood open on it for the several years that it sat to try and deter rats and mice from getting in, which, I mean, it worked, but the cost of that was the sun was shining on everything. It really rotted this plastic. It destroyed the degas bottle. I mean, it was just fragile. All the plastic stuff was fragile, and it faded a lot of things. The Excursion so far, none of these plugins have broke on me, and I'm hoping that they don't, because I do not want to go back there and splice new stuff on when I can't see. Oh, good grief. What an ordeal to get all this done. I mean, good grief. I ended up having to take that valve off. It sits right there. It's right here. Had to pull lines off and stuff. Nothing wanted to cooperate. Nothing wanted to stay out of my way. That back one, I dropped the bolt that retains the ignition coil, and I couldn't find it. It was sitting right there. I just couldn't see it because this coil in front was in the way. It was just a nightmare, and I was getting real mad, and that's why I don't leave the camera on all the time, because, well, a lot of that would either have to be censored or just cut out completely, and so then I'd just be wasting battery on the camera. But everything's in, everything's torqued down where it should be. It's weird that everything is supposed to be torqued down. I mean, it's just barely firm. It's a glorified hand tight. But that's what I did on my pickup, and like I said, 4,000 miles, it hasn't given me really much trouble or anything, so could it be? Did you guys hear that? Could it be? Oh my goodness! Power Stroke Panther. Hey, yeah, we're not working on diesels today, baby kitty. Yeah, we're not working on diesels. Not today. I got another injector I got to put in the 6.4. I know I just did a video about the number 7 injector in it, but it turns out number 3 was going. It's on its way out, so I got that on order. And that's why I'm doing this today, so we got this vehicle we can drive if we need it. Yeah, so all those spark plugs were really not in good shape. They were, I mean, well, here. This is number 1. This is actually one of the best ones I pulled out. This one right here. This is one of the best ones I pulled out. Most of them were so worn down that little electrode that's sticking out above my thumb, the little electrode was gone, and it was just down flat, flush with the insulator. I mean, they were pretty well worn, slap out. And I tell you what, after having to fight that thing all afternoon, I am worn slap out as well. But that's okay. All the coils, they're okay. They're just, you know, like on this one. This one's actually in really good shape, but some of the others were just kind of cracked, and you can replace the boots. They come off right here. You could just keep this part, and there's a whole spring system in here with a little puck or whatever, I guess for electrical reasons. I don't know. I'm no electrical engineer, but you can replace the silicone boot on these and reuse the coil. If you are on an extreme budget, then I recommend you do that. Generally, these ignition coils just don't quit. It's usually the boot or water gets in there and shorts them out. And that is one of the things I don't like about these V10s, is that they do not seal. This does not seal that spark plug well very good. And so, like, you see there's dirt and stuff on it right here. This is the part that's exposed in the engine bay. This is right below it. There's dirt and stuff on there. Some of these I pulled out were pretty nasty. And blowing out those spark plug wells, like you guys saw when I was doing number 6, to start with at the beginning of the video, dirty, just full of sand and grit and dirt and whatever else. But everything finally got out and got put back in, and we're going to be ready to test run it here in a second. I can't test drive it today because I'm blocked in. There's about 10 million things sitting here that need work done on them, but I'll go ahead and put everything back together and fire it up, and then we'll see if it runs good, if it runs better. It ought to. I mean, good grief. As long as I don't see a spark plug going flying out of here, I think we'll be okay. While you're in here, oh, I almost forgot. Clear back in there. I don't know if you guys can see it. Yeah, right there with that conduit. It's plugged into that injector. I had to replace injector 4 connector. That's why you always buy extras. That's your fuel injector connector right there. Of course, that came from Rock Auto. When I did my pickup, I bought a ton of these. I bought 12, and I bought 12 ignition coil connectors too. I got some leftover ignition coil connectors. I think I got more of them than I do the fuel injector ones. Everything's left over in this box. Yeah, I got headlamp plug-ins. That's my high side AC sensor switch. I got, 5 or 6 of those left. I've got, what was that for? Oh, that was for my compressor on my pickup. Yeah, it never hurts to hang on to all this stuff, but I mostly got in ignition coil connectors because they're not just for the ignition coils. Like I said earlier, they're for the camshaft sensor, camshaft position sensor, and the crankshaft position sensor. And if those aren't plugged in, if they're not working, then the engine won't start. So I got plenty of them and got a couple extra fuel injector connectors. So that's why you always buy extra, because you never know when you're going to need them. Also, I think the second one's out here. Yeah, it's right here. So on this one, if you can kind of see, get... Okay, well, I was going to show you guys. Where's the stub? All right, so this is what I cut off, right? You see them little green rings on there? Those little insulator retainer things? That connector I just dropped, one of those was missing when I got it, and that's why you buy extra. That's what I was talking about earlier when I said some of these connectors right out of the box aren't very good, and they just fall apart. But, I don't feel so bad about it because those are only $10. And you might think, oh my gosh, $10, that's really expensive. And it is when you have to do, 10 of them. But I'd rather spend $10 on something and it be bad than spend 15 or 20, which is what you'd pay going elsewhere. So, I like these little handy packs. They're pretty nice. Well, we'll go ahead and... Yeah, there was nothing wrong with this. It's just them little tabs like to snap off on those connectors. Usually the injectors do it, and the ignition coils, not so much. So, yeah, all that happened. I just wanted to mention that before I forgot. But I got it in there, got it all crimped down and everything, and it should be okay. I need to order some 1/4-inch plastic conduit. That stuff's handy. The 1/4-inch and the 3/8 you will use a ton of. If you really want to be prepared, get 1/4-inch, 3/8, and 1/2-inch plastic conduit. I mean, it's just real handy to have. Yeah. I had some leftover from the 6.4 and we were working on it. So, all right. Now I'll shut up. I'll put this all back together so that we can do a test run on it and make sure that everything's okay, because it's going to be pretty embarrassing if I start this up and something comes flying out of the engine, right? Or we hear a bunch of hissing or popping or something like that, right? Right. All right. Everything is back together. I believe so, anyway. There's a line clear back in there. Let's see if you can see it. All right, that steel line, it's right there. There's a new line that runs from it into this. I went ahead and replaced it because, well, I was in there. It sucks, but I'd rather do it now than have to do it later, because future Owen is not going to want to replace any of that. So present Owen will replace it. So that's all done. Everything's plugged in, connected. That's as good as it's going to get for right now. As long as I don't mess with it, it should be okay. And if I got to put more silicone on it, I got to put more silicone on it. I mean, they're still making silicone, so. All right. 208,894 miles. Good grief. All right. Here we go. Sounds better. Oh, heck yeah, that sounds a lot better. I don't see anything leaking. I don't hear anything out of the ordinary. valve or something in here that's tapping. It might be a lifter, might be a cam follower, I don't know. I don't really care. I mean, I'm not going to do anything about it. Can't. So once it gets warmed up, it stops, but I like the way that sounds. Float the valves for a minute. Yeah, that valve probably should be fixed, maybe. I don't know. I'm not going to do it. Yeah, that's better. Let's see here. Oh, that's nice and smooth. This thing ought to go like the heel flies are after it now, but something's in my way. Can't back out of here, but that's all right. That's good enough for now. I think that'll go ahead and do. Now that that's fixed, at least this can be driven. I was nervous about the spark plugs not wanting to come out because I thought, well, that'd be about my luck if they didn't. But they all did, and everything went back in, so seems okay. Seems okay. Knock on wood. Nothing will go wrong now. So, yeah. I'm going to call that successful. And you guys can take all this under advisement if you decide to do spark plugs on these. Whatever I mentioned, I'd put down below earlier. It'll be down below. Yeah, I don't remember what I filmed a few hours ago. I mean, cut me some slack. I'm not really feeling in the mood to video stuff, but I'm doing these projects, and I figured, well, might as well, because I'm only going to be able to do it once, right? Well, I ain't going to be able to do it again for a long time. That's what I mean. So, yeah, all right. Feel pretty good about that. I'll go ahead and get all my stuff picked up, and there's some of those. Hang on, where are they? Yeah, see, there's some of them nice 10 to 12 gauge ones. Them freaking connectors are awesome. It's one of the best things I ever discovered. There's that old fuel line. If you're wondering why my hands look like I just was, fondling coal all afternoon, that's why. I hate those. I don't know. This is a special. This is a Ford special. It's a 1/2-inch line, internal, but the external diameter is different because a proper 1/2-inch fuel line looks like that compared to, well, yeah. So, I don't know. I guess they're cutting corners somewhere when they build these things, right? Well, they ain't building them no more, but you guys know what I mean. So, all right, I'm getting tired, and I got a lot of stuff to pick up. And I got a lot of stuff to do yet. So I'm going to go ahead and cut the video here. I appreciate you guys watching. It means quite a bit. Hope this helped you. If you have any questions, let me know. If I forget to put anything in the description, let me know, because sometimes I forget stuff. And I'll just catch you guys in the next one. Probably be a 6.4 Power Stroke injector. That won't be as long as the last injector video on that, though. It'll be a shorter one, because I ain't going to go into as much detail about stuff. And then, at some point, when we get some other things done around here, I'm going to get back to work on that Caterpillar. I have not forgotten about it. I promise you I have not forgotten about it. I got all the parts in here. I got the air cleaner over there, and I got the, well, starting engine air cleaners there too. I've got the intake pipe and the / exhaust pipe for the pony motor right there. And there's the governor. She's all here. I just got to get it. I just got to have time to get this stuff apart and take care of it. I got to stop every 2 weeks and work on a vehicle. That eats into my time. So, all right, that's all right. I will seriously stop now. Thank you guys for watching. It means quite a bit. And I'll just catch you in the next one, whenever that'll be.